So this is the final part. Thank you all for listening along and taking this fun little baseball Detroit relationship hopeful journey with me. Chapter 102. The World's Serious, Anna kept saying. Marty wasn't about to correct her. He adored everything about her, including her accent and marginally mixed up English. Swedish, he called it. The engaged couple sat sipping Final Absolutions at their packed bar. Anna's shift was over. Most normal people would flee their workplaces once they punched the clock, but she liked everything about the place, her adopted home. Casual customers she'd met over the past several months were now fast friends. Many of them were scattered throughout the place, watching the Turner Brothers on their bar's TV screens, each one tuned exclusively to the pre-game ceremonies downtown. Two of the three Bengal women sat at their reserved table with two of the two venture capitalists. Lawyers earlier that month had finally cleared them of any wrongdoing. They offered the coincidence clause. Sometimes there's a remarkable series of two or more events that have no causal or casual connection. Each occupant of that booth, Dory and Lori, more emphatically than Charlie and Vince, knew there was really no such thing as coincidences. Everything was connected. Everything is connected. Even Einstein believed that, saying coincidences are God's way of remaining anonymous. That didn't mean, however, that the guys had done anything wrong. Still, their sizable donation to Detroit area food pantries helped them assuage any residual guilt and tidy up their consciences a little more. That last little bit was suggested by Dory and encouraged by Lori. Extra Innings, Chapter 103. 2004's World Series would be remembered for decades, even by people who cared little about baseball. Whereas old Hoss Radburn's career was quickly lost to all but the most hardcore fans, or writers looking up old baseball stats from the 1800s on his computer, the Detroit Bengals would become a verb synonymous with incredible wins or stories, or oddly bagels even. That dude bengled the wave. Then she told her boss, blank, and bengled her bonus. Give me a salt and sesame and bengle them with cream cheese. Okay, that last one never really caught on, despite efforts by Vince and Charlie's Donut Shop to cash in on Detroit's fame. It was a gallant effort, but sometimes marketers just go a bit too far. A pistachio and cashew company in Detroit's Eastern Market attempted to use balls in their advertising slogans, but the public quickly punched them in the nuts. Sorry. Chapter 104. In a series of comic strips published in succession for a week and a day, Joe Louis recited a soliloquy. Unusual in every aspect of cartooning, the strip contained a close-up of Joe's face as she shared her philosophy. Comic geeks not only fell in love with her, in some cases literally, but they printed various panels on T-shirts and posters for years to come. The royalties made Neil Rubin and his partner a hefty sum of money. These are exactly as the comics were printed. No one ever guessed how Neil learned these philosophies, and they wouldn't believe it if you told them it was just over lunch. Day 1. Imagine being able to slow down your surroundings to a point where everything and everyone appears to be standing still. Day 2. Think about yourself moving through this stasis like you normally would. Day 3. To you, the world would appear pretty much frozen in place while you drove your car, walked your dog, or threw a baseball. Day 4. Now imagine what you would look like to those whose lives have suddenly become like peanut butter in January. Day 5. You're driving, or walking, or pitching would be a blur. Day 6. Yes, I said you're pitching. Day 7. To others, you would appear only if you kept remarkably still, or maybe you could figure out a way to speed them up. Day 8. You're welcome, she said, with a wink of her eye. Chapter 105. Mike Fidrich's Pleasant Ridge Pizza Parlor was changing its look almost as much as its owner was. A visibly leaner Fidrich oversaw much of the restaurant makeover himself, spending hours each day once the baseball season was over and the hockey season was just starting. Detroit was yet to become a culinary capital, but Fidrich was shrewd enough to see the signs all around him. Gone were the dated Naugahyde banquettes and dimly lit dining areas. Bright new windows opened the building up to passers-by on Woodward Avenue. Rooftop seating was added for relaxed dining during the summer months and for exclusive viewing of the annual Dream Cruise, where classic cars convened and drove back and forth up and down the historic thoroughfare. Part of which was America's first paved road, by the way. Fidrich was a wealthy man, but now his money didn't seem to weigh him down. Neither did his rapidly disappearing fat rolls. Something altogether foreign had been wandering around inside of him ever since that first check he presented to the city happened. It felt really good to do something nice, even if it was forced to do it first. Here was the exact thought process burbling inside his brain as of late. First, let me get this straight. It makes me inordinately happy to hand out money to people or places that need it. Then, but it makes other people happy too. Which was always followed by, so we're all happy, there's no downside, and everybody wins. What the heck am I missing? Chapter 106. I-75 was moving along at a fast clip this morning. Sometimes, particularly when there's seemingly endless construction, the highway moved no faster than a forest footpath. But today, as autumn was in its mid-innings, I-75 was quick and efficient, moving cars and commerce along. Passing the formerly abandoned factories and warehouses, Willie Palmer smiled when he noticed most of the for lease signs were gone. Detroit's revitalization seemed to be moving along as quickly as I-75. Coming out from under an overpass, Palmer yet again noticed the three spires of St. Josaphat Church brilliantly lit by the morning's rays, and rising off in the distance, in the corresponding contrast, rose the main tower and two side buildings of the Renaissance Center. For an instant, and only for an instant, particularly at this morning's speed, the old church and the new office building lined up with perfect symmetry. It was a familiar sight to every commuter in Detroit. Still, the manager smiled to himself and gave what only could be described as a contented sigh. He wasn't used to feeling that way, but even if he was caught off guard by the moment, he knew he could get used to it. Chapter 107. Palmer wasn't the only ball player driving south on 75 that morning. Hope, too, was heading south, a bit south, for the winter. Just a little. Every once in a great while, he liked to sit behind the wheel and drive the open roads, letting himself momentarily adhere to the three-dimensional rules of space and time. Hitting the Ohio Turnpike, he smiled back at the universe and headed east. Chapter 108. 8 or 10 people boarded a rather impressive-looking yacht at the Grosse Pointe Yacht Club on that chilly November morning. Port of call? Somewhere, everywhere in the Caribbean. Most people don't think of going from Motown to Montserrat by anything but airplane, but thanks to the St. Louis Seaway and the comfort of a lavish yacht, the passengers could ride the slow boat to Barbados. Privacy dictates that their identities remain anonymous, though a grainy cell phone camera captured what purportedly was a dog wearing a captain's cap. Most everybody ignored that report as being simply too ludicrous. Chapter 109. It was the off-season, a grubby gray January which froze the snot in your nostrils whenever you tried looking forward to spring. The Cleveland suburbs were encrusted with the glazed ice residue from last week's fake thaw, then hard freeze. No one cared about baseball. The end. And that, as they say, is that. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. I had a fun time reading this throughout my quarantine time away from everybody. If you want to see more, I'm always hanging out at rodneycurtis.com. Feel free to come by whenever you want. And maybe bring some salty snacks. See ya.